She said the curtains never hung right. That's how it started, her standing on the edge of the sofa, holding the fabric in her hands like it had personally betrayed her. The evening light pushed through the window, slicing across her face and turning the tiny lines near her eyes into something soft, like a secret she didn't mind me seeing. I told her I could fix them. I don't know why. I'd only come by to drop off a book she'd lent me months ago, an old collection of short stories with her notes scribbled in the margins. But when she looked at me and laughed, this small, tired laugh, I couldn't just leave. So I found myself standing beside her, holding one end of the curtain rod while she steadied the other. The air between us felt heavier than it should have. The room was quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you notice the sound of your own breathing, or how close someone is standing. She said, "You don't have to do this, you know." I said, "I don't mind." And she smiled without really looking at me, just enough to make something in my chest tighten. Her name was Elena. I'd known her as my literature teacher once, years ago. Now she lived alone in this small apartment with shelves that reached the ceiling and a plant that looked half alive. The smell of old paper and coffee hung in the air, something warm and lonely all at once. The curtain rod slipped a little. She reached up, and her hand brushed mine. Not a grab, just the lightest touch, like skin remembering something before the mind catches up. She didn't pull away. Neither did I. Then she cleared her throat and said, quietly, "It's always a little crooked, no matter how I hang it." I looked at the wall, not her. Maybe it just needs a second pair of hands. She laughed again, softer this time. Or maybe it just doesn't want to stay open. That line lingered. Doesn't want to stay open. I wanted to ask what she meant, but she had that tone, the one people use when they're talking about something else entirely. She stepped down from the sofa. Her hair fell over one shoulder, loose and careless. She reached for the curtain to test it, and the back of her hand grazed my arm. The fabric swayed, brushing against her wrist, and suddenly it didn't matter if the window was straight or not, the air in the room had changed. For a moment, she stood right in front of me. Close enough that I could smell her perfume, faint jasmine, mixed with something warm, like vanilla left too long in the sun. Her breath caught. Mine did too. Neither of us said anything. The sunlight shifted, cutting across her collarbone. She looked at me, really looked, and I felt every reason I shouldn't be standing there rush through me all at once. But she didn't move. Instead, she reached up and pulled the curtain closed. The room dimmed instantly, shadows swallowing the space between us. I could hear the faint sound of her pulse, or maybe it was mine. Her voice came low, barely above a whisper, "There. Better." I didn't know if she meant the light, or something else entirely. I took a breath to say something, anything, but before I could, there was a sharp knock at the door. She turned toward it, hands still holding the curtain tight, and for half a second she looked like she might tell me to stay quiet. Then she whispered, without turning back, "Don't move." And I didn't. The knock came again, heavier this time. Elena's body tensed, her fingers still gripping the edge of the curtain. "It's probably just the neighbor," she said, but her voice had gone flat. When she finally opened the door, it was only the mailman with a small parcel and an apology for being late. Nothing dramatic. But when she closed it again, something in the room had changed, like the pause had pulled us both back into ourselves. She leaned against the door for a second, eyes shut. Then she laughed under her breath, almost to herself. "You'd think I was hiding something." I said, "Are you?" before I could stop myself. She looked at me, not sharply, but with that kind of quiet curiosity that undoes you. "Maybe," she said. "But not from you." The air between us thickened again. She walked back toward the window, adjusting the edge of the curtain that didn't really need adjusting. I sat down on the arm of the sofa, trying to look anywhere but her hands, the way her nails tapped lightly against the fabric, the way she held herself like she was trying not to feel too much. I remembered being her student, the way she used to tuck her hair behind her ear when she was thinking, or how her voice softened when she read poetry aloud. Back then, I thought it was admiration. Now it felt like something else, something I didn't have the right to name. Were you ever married? I asked quietly. She didn't look up. Once. A pause. Then, he liked everything neat. Predictable. I wasn't. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. It didn't last long. I wanted to say something comforting, something normal, but my voice caught. Instead, I just nodded. She turned toward me then, slowly. And you? Anyone waiting for you? I shook my head. No one that would notice. She laughed, soft, kind. That's either freedom or loneliness. Maybe both, I said. We stayed quiet after that. The kind of silence that feels full. Her hand brushed against the sofa near mine, not touching, but close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her skin. My pulse jumped. She noticed, I know she did, because she didn't move away. Her eyes lifted to mine, steady, searching. For a second, I forgot to breathe. Then she reached out, fingers barely grazing my sleeve. You've changed, she said, almost a whisper. So have you, I replied. She gave this half-smile, the kind that hides more than it shows. Don't say that, she murmured. You're too young to sound like me. Her hand lingered a second longer, then slipped away. But the warmth stayed. Somewhere outside, a car door slammed. Voices. The normal world pressing back in. She stepped toward the window, peeking through the curtain again. You should probably go before it gets dark, she said, but she didn't open it. I stood, hesitant. You'll call if it slips again? Her eyes flicked toward me, a tiny spark of mischief there, just enough to make my chest tighten. Maybe I'll just let it stay closed, she said. But when I turned to leave, she brushed past me, close enough that her shoulder grazed mine, her breath warm against my neck. Thank you, she whispered, and for a heartbeat, I thought she might say something else. She didn't. She just let the silence say it for her. I told myself I wouldn't go back. For 3 days, I managed to believe it. But on the 4th, I found myself outside her door again, holding a book I pretended she'd forgotten. When she opened it, her expression flickered, surprise first, then something softer, almost relief. You really didn't have to, she said. I was passing by, I lied. She stepped aside, letting me in without another word. The apartment looked the same muted light, same faint smell of coffee. Only she looked different. Tired, maybe. Or pretending not to be waiting. I set the book on her table. You still haven't fixed the right curtain, I said, trying to sound casual. She smiled. I thought I'd leave it for you. The silence that followed felt too long, like a string pulled tight. She stood near the window, one hand resting on the edge of the fabric, the other brushing her necklace, a small, worn silver pendant. My eyes followed the motion before I caught myself. She noticed. Of course she did. Her lips parted slightly, then closed again. Would you like some tea? She asked. I nodded. Sure. In the kitchen, she moved slowly, like every gesture was deliberate. The kettle hissed between us. She handed me a cup, fingers grazing mine, a spark that felt anything but accidental. We talked about nothing, the weather, the price of books, a movie she'd half-watched. But every word carried something else beneath it, a current neither of us named. Then her phone buzzed on the counter. A message, a name flashing across the screen, Laura, dinner tonight? She reached for it quickly, but not fast enough. I looked away before I could read more. My sister, she said. She worries. Her voice sounded steady, but her hand tightened around the phone until her knuckles paled. I nodded, pretending to believe her. You should go. I don't want to, she said, then added too quickly, not yet. The kettle clicked off. The silence that followed was thick, electric. I took a step closer, not touching, but close enough that I could feel her breath when she looked up. She whispered, "You shouldn't look at me like that." Like what? Like you don't know what it means. She tried to step back, but her hip brushed the counter. I didn't move, and for a moment, it felt like the whole world had narrowed down to that small kitchen, the hum of the fridge, the faint scent of jasmine, the distance between us that neither of us could seem to keep. Her fingers brushed my wrist, light, hesitant. She didn't pull away. I could see her pulse in her throat, the small tremor of her breath. Then, a knock at the door. Sharp. Familiar. We both froze. She exhaled, quiet and shaky. "That's probably my neighbor," she whispered, already moving, but her hand lingered on mine half a second too long. When the door opened, an older woman's voice floated in, cheerful, oblivious. "Elena. I brought the casserole you liked. Oh, I didn't realize you had company." Elena's shoulders tensed. "Just an old student," she said, smiling too brightly. I nodded, forcing a polite grin. The woman chatted for a minute, then finally left. When the door closed, neither of us spoke. Elena leaned back against it, eyes shut. "You see," she whispered. "This can't look like anything." "I know," I said. But when she opened her eyes again, there was something defiant in them, or maybe it was surrender. And somehow, we ended up standing closer than before, so close I could feel her breath when she said, barely audible, "Then why does it?" Neither of us had an answer. I didn't plan to see her again so soon. But some plans collapse the moment you hear a voice you've been trying not to miss. Elena called that evening, said something about the curtain rod slipping again, though we both knew it hadn't. I could hear the hesitation in her voice, the pause before my name, the quiet exhale after. When I arrived, the light in her apartment was dim, just a single lamp by the sofa, throwing a warm pool of gold that caught the edges of her hair. She was barefoot, sleeves rolled up, eyes darker than usual. "I didn't think you'd actually come," she said. "You called," I answered. That made her smile, small, real. "I shouldn't have." "Probably not," I said. But neither of us moved to close the distance. She handed me a screwdriver she didn't really need, pretending to fuss with the curtain again. The silence between us hummed. My hand brushed hers as I reached for the rod, just a touch, light as a pulse, and she didn't pull away. Instead, she whispered, "You make it hard to forget how young you are." I turned toward her, the tool forgotten in my hand. "Does that bother you?" Her laugh was soft, almost broken. "It should." There was something in her eyes, not amusement this time, but fear. The kind that comes when you've been alone too long and suddenly someone sees through you. I said, "You think this is just curiosity?" "I think it can't be more." "Then why did you call me?" Her lips parted, but no words came. Her hand trembled as she reached to fix the same crooked corner of fabric, buying herself a second she didn't use. I stepped closer, close enough to feel the warmth of her shoulder, the faint scent of her skin. My voice came out lower than I meant. "Tell me to leave." She didn't. Her fingers slipped from the curtain, brushing my chest as she turned. The air shifted, electric, unsteady. Her breath caught, and I could feel it, warm against my jaw. "I can't," she started, but the sentence didn't find its end. "Then don't," I whispered. Her hand came up, hesitating near my face, as if she wasn't sure whether to push me away or pull me closer. Her fingertips grazed my cheek, trailed down to my collar, then stopped. Her eyes searched mine, not for permission, but for escape. She said, quietly, "You don't understand what this could ruin." "I don't care," I said before I could stop myself. I can't pretend I don't think about you. Her breath shook, lips parting as if to speak, but instead, she stepped forward, her body against mine, every inch of her trembling with what she wouldn't say. For a heartbeat, the world went silent, just the sound of her pulse, her breath, her hand sliding up my arm. Then, just as her lips brushed the edge of mine, a phone rang. Loud. Jarring. Real. She froze. I felt her whole body tense, her forehead resting against my shoulder. Neither of us moved. The ringing kept going. Finally, she whispered, almost to herself, I told myself this wouldn't happen. And I whispered back, then why does it feel like it already has? The phone stopped ringing, but the silence it left behind was louder. Elena pulled away first, eyes wide, breathing uneven. She didn't look at me, just reached for the phone, hands shaking slightly. It's fine, she murmured, though no one had asked. Just, stay there. Her voice was tight, brittle. She pressed the phone to her ear, turning away, but her reflection in the dark window betrayed her, the quick dart of her eyes toward me, the way she bit her lip before speaking. Hi, Laura, she said softly. Her sister again. No, I'm just at home. Alone. That word, alone, landed between us like a dropped glass. I took a step back. She caught the movement in the reflection and turned, guilt flickering across her face before she could hide it. Okay, she said into the phone. Yes. I'll come tomorrow. She ended the call and set the phone down on the counter. Her hand stayed there for a long moment, knuckles white against the surface. You didn't have to say that, I said quietly. She didn't answer right away. Then, with a sigh, you shouldn't have been here. I almost laughed, not out of amusement, but disbelief. You asked me to come. Her voice cracked, just barely. That was a mistake. I stepped closer. Then why does it feel like the only thing that wasn't? She turned to face me, something raw in her expression. Because you don't know everything. Then tell me. Her mouth opened, but the words seemed to stick. Finally, she said, you remember when you graduated? When you asked for that letter of recommendation? Yeah. I never sent it. The room seemed to tilt. What? She looked down. You wanted to go abroad. You would have gotten in. I had the form, the envelope, everything. But I didn't send it. My throat went dry. Why? She met my eyes, and the truth in them hurt worse than anger could. Because I didn't want you to leave. The air thickened, every sound suddenly too sharp, the ticking clock, the hum of the fridge, my pulse pounding in my ears. I stepped forward, and she flinched, not from fear, but from the weight of her own confession. I told myself I was protecting you, she said. That it didn't matter. You'd find your way anyway. But it wasn't protection, was it? It was selfish. I searched her face, the flicker of shame, the tremor in her lips, the tears she wouldn't let fall. For a second, I couldn't speak. Then I said, you should have let me go. She nodded, eyes glassy. I know. The space between us felt charged, dangerous. She took a step toward me anyway, then another. Her hand brushed my chest, trembling. I thought if you left, I'd never see you again. You wouldn't have, I whispered. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, then away. And now? Now it's too late, I said. She laughed softly, brokenly. Or too early. We stood there, caught between guilt and gravity, both knowing that confession had changed something permanent. Outside, thunder rolled, a low, distant sound that made the glass tremble. She reached up, fingertips grazing my jaw. Then what happens now? I caught her hand, held it for a moment, then let it go. Now, I said, voice low, we stop pretending. The storm arrived in the night. Rain pressed against the windows like it was trying to get in. The apartment felt smaller, the air thicker, too warm, too quiet. Elena stood by the window, arms folded. The lamp behind her threw a halo around her shoulders, soft and trembling with the flicker of the storm. "I shouldn't have told you," she said. "About the letter. I've been trying to forget that version of me for years." "You didn't lie," I said. "You just couldn't let go." She turned then, eyes sharp. "Don't defend me." I didn't. I just stood there, rain dripping from my hair, the sound of it hitting the floor marking the silence between us. "Why did you come back?" she asked. "I didn't want to leave it like that." She shook her head slowly. "You should have." The air between us pulsed, heavy, restless. She stepped forward, her voice softening. "Every time I think I can stop this, you show up. And it starts again." "I didn't come to start anything," I said. "I came because I can't stop thinking about you." Her breath caught. "You think that's something to be proud of?" "No," I said. "But it's real." For a long moment, she didn't move. Then she took one step closer. The storm flashed white behind her, a brief moment of light across her face, her eyes glinting like something about to break. "I keep wondering what people would think," she whispered. "If they saw you here. If they saw me like this." I moved closer, not touching, but near enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. "Why does it matter what they'd see, if it's already true?" She exhaled, a sound that was half a sigh, half surrender. "You shouldn't talk like that," she said. "You make it sound simple." "It is," I said. "You just don't want it to be." Her eyes lifted, searching mine. "You'll hate me someday." "Maybe," I said. "But not tonight." Lightning flashed again, and in that instant, she reached out, fingers brushing the back of my neck, sliding into my hair. My heart stuttered, my breath catching as she leaned in, stopping just shy of a kiss. "This can't fix what I've broken," she whispered. "I don't want it to fix anything," I said. "I just want it to be real." Her forehead rested against mine, no more distance left, just the sound of rain and breath and the quiet ache of everything unsaid. "I'm so tired of being careful," she breathed. "Then don't be." Her hand slipped to my chest, feeling my heartbeat. I covered it with mine, holding it there, anchoring us both. When she finally looked up again, something had changed, no hesitation, no fear, just truth. "This will cost us," she said. "I know." She closed her eyes, as if to stop herself, but didn't move away. And in that single, fragile second before the world could interrupt again, the distance between us finally disappeared. Not a confession. Not a rescue. Just two people choosing what they couldn't deny any longer. When the rain eased, she whispered, almost to herself, "Now you understand." And I did. Morning came quietly. The storm had passed, leaving the air heavy with that clean, wet smell that only comes after everything has been washed raw. Elena stood by the window again, her hair a little messy, wrapped in the gray cardigan she always wore when she thought no one was watching. The curtains, finally straight, finally still, framed her in the soft, forgiving light. I sat on the edge of the sofa, half turned toward her. Neither of us had said much. We didn't need to. The silence didn't feel dangerous anymore, just full. She glanced back at me, eyes tired but gentle. "You should hate me a little," she said. "I don't," I answered. "You should," she repeated, but her smile betrayed her. "It'd make more sense." I shrugged, running a hand through my hair. "Nothing about this makes sense. Maybe that's why it feels real." She let out a small laugh, that kind that sounds like it almost hurts. "You sound older than you should." "And you sound younger than you think," I said. That earned me a look, soft, amused, but with a trace of something fragile beneath it. She walked over and sat beside me. The sofa dipped under her weight. For a moment, we didn't touch, just sat there, side by side, breathing the same quiet air. Then her hand found mine. Tentative. Careful. Like she was asking a question without words. I didn't pull away. We stayed like that for a long time, hands loosely held, shoulders almost brushing. The city outside hummed back to life, car doors, a dog barking, the normal world continuing as if nothing had changed. But it had. Elena leaned back, head resting against the sofa. You know this isn't going to be easy. I didn't come here for easy. Her eyes closed for a second, and when she opened them again, something had softened. You could still walk away, she said quietly. Pretend it was just a moment that got away from us. I turned toward her fully. Would you want me to? She hesitated. Then she shook her head. No, her hand tightened around mine. We sat in that truth, no grand declarations, no promises, just honesty between two people who'd stopped running from it. When she finally leaned her head on my shoulder, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. I could feel her breathing slow, steadying against me. My thumb brushed the back of her hand, tracing small, aimless circles. You know, she murmured, I never did fix those curtains properly. I smiled. Maybe they were never supposed to stay open. That made her laugh, a quiet, genuine sound that filled the room like sunlight after rain. Outside, the clouds were thinning. The world looked brighter, softer. Inside, we just stayed there, not planning, not regretting, just being. When she finally whispered, "Stay for coffee?" I nodded without thinking. I was hoping you'd ask. And for the first time, neither of us looked away. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?